The movie opens with a treasure hunter named Nate dangling upside down from a chain of cargo crates that are suspended from an open airplane. He struggles his way upward while fighting off several mercenaries and manages to climb back inside the plane, but the moment he gets in, a red car slams into him and knocks him out again. As he plunges toward his death, someone grabs his hand just in time, mirroring a small adventure Nate experienced as a child. 15 years earlier, a young Nate and his older brother Sam sneak into a museum in Boston, and Nate nearly falls out of a window if Sam hadn't caught him. The orphan brothers are searching for a map created after the Magellan expedition that they plan to use to locate a long-lost treasure. Unfortunately, just as Sam attempts to pick the lock, he sets off the alarm, and the police catch them. The boys are brought back to the orphanage, and while Nate is allowed to stay, Sam has to be sent to a juvenile detention facility since this is already his third offense. They're given a short moment alone to say their goodbyes, and Sam uses this chance to make his escape. Before he leaves, he hands Nate his treasured ring, so a part of him will always stay with him, and he promises that he'll come back someday. After Sam is gone, Nate discovers a blank piece of paper along with his brother's lighter, which he uses to reveal a hidden message filled with Sam's love. In the present day, Nate now works as a bartender in New York. He also secretly pickpockets wealthy customers by getting close to them with simple excuses, like helping a woman light her cigarette so he can steal her bracelet. Nate still keeps his brother's lighter with him, although it barely works anymore. One night, as he's closing the bar, a man named Sully walks up to him and praises his pickpocketing skills before offering him a chance to join an important upcoming job. Nate refuses to get involved in crime with a stranger and throws him out, only to later realize that Sully has already taken the bracelet from his pocket and left behind his card instead. Wanting to get the bracelet back, Nate heads to the address on the card and sneaks into the apartment by swiping the doorman's keys. Sully is already there waiting for him, and to Nate's surprise, he has the original Magellan map in his possession. Nate talks about the legends claiming the expedition was meant to find gold, and Sully confirms it's true, explaining that the journey was funded by the Moncada family, whose present-day heirs Armando and his son Santiago are still searching for the treasure. To convince Nate to join him, Sully reveals that he used to be friends with Sam and even shows a photo of him as an adult. According to Sully, Sam went missing after they discovered Magellan's journal, and he hasn't heard from him since. Nate admits that sounds like Sam since he hasn't heard from his brother either. So Sully suggests that finding the gold might also lead Nate to him. Even so, Nate refuses, saying the brother he once knew is no longer the same. But when he gets back to his apartment, he opens a box filled with personal memories, including postcards from Sam. It turns out, Nate wasn't honest when he said his brother never reached out again. He also finds the ring, and after putting it on, he decides to accept Sully's offer. Nate and Sully then meet up to plan their next move. An auction is about to take place, and one of the items up for sale is a cross that serves as a key to the chamber where the gold is hidden. Legend says there are two keys, and since Sully already has one, they need to steal the other to begin their search. After making Sully agree to split the gold evenly, Nate spends his time studying the auction building and comes up with a plan. On the night of the auction, Sully and Nate spot an expensive red car and realize that Santiago is there too, which means stealing the cross won't be easy since he believes the gold rightfully belongs to him. He doesn't come alone, as he's accompanied by a mercenary leader named Joe, who used to be Sully's partner and even mocks him when she sees him. As the auction is about to begin, Sully blends in by posing as one of the bidders while Nate prepares their plan. Joe notices Nate acting suspiciously and orders her men to keep a close watch on him. By sticking gum onto the digital lock, Nate manages to break into the electrical room, planning to cut the power so Sully can steal the cross in the darkness. Since Nate is taking too long, Sully is forced to start bidding against Santiago, even though he doesn't actually have the money. Things go wrong when Nate is discovered by Joe's men, leading to a fight. After trading a few hits, Nate escapes the room and creates a distraction by jumping onto the hall's ceiling lights. Panic spreads across the room, and as the cross is being moved away, Sully flips his jacket and pretends to be part of the staff. While Nate is spotted and chased by security, Sully grabs the cross and claims he's responsible for taking it to the vault, but Joe quickly catches on and goes after him. She corners him and threatens him with a knife, but just then, security arrives and tries to arrest her for attacking an auction worker. Sully takes advantage of the moment and escapes with the cross while Joe is busy fighting off the guards. When Sully returns to his car, Nate is already there waiting, and they decide to head to Spain together. During the flight, Nate examines the captain's journal, which confirms the legend. Magellan had discovered massive amounts of gold in the Philippines, secretly hid it in Barcelona, and then lied to the Moncada family by claiming he found nothing. By following the clues in the journal, they believe they can locate the treasure, although the only clear lead so far points to a tree. When they arrive in Barcelona, they meet Chloe, another treasure hunter who already has the second cross. However, she refuses to work with Sully, seeing him as a liar and someone who betrays people. After she walks away, Nate realizes she also took their cross, so he chases her through the streets of Barcelona. Chloe is quicker and reaches her car, ready to leave. Nate and Sully don't give up and manage to convince her to stay by pointing out that while she has both crosses, they're the ones with the journal, making them the only ones who know what to do next. With that, they decide to work together. Nate leads them to the location hinted at by the clue. It turns out it's not an actual tree, but a church whose name includes pine and even has a tree as its symbol. At the same time, Santiago confronts his father. Armando appears on the news announcing he plans to give away his fortune, explaining that their wealth is stained with blood. When he refuses to change his decision, Santiago leaves and meets with Joe, ordering her to keep watch on Sully after learning he's been spotted in the city. Back with the group, they take a short break before continuing their plan. While Nate is in the kitchen, Chloe tells Sully that she has figured out Nate is Sam's brother and insists he tell Nate the truth about what really happened, but Sully says he'll wait for the right time. The next day, Santiago once again tries to convince his father not to give away the fortune. When Armando still refuses, Santiago follows him to his car and orders Joe to kill him. That night, the group enters the church pretending to be tourists, and Nate is surprised to see that the postcards sold there match one that Sam once sent him. By following the symbols and words carved into the floors and walls, the trio discovers a hidden button that Nate presses, revealing a secret painting behind a statue of Mary. When Nate turns it around and exposes an image of hell, the altar shifts and reveals the keyholes for the crosses. Nate and Chloe insert the crosses and turn them clockwise first, which triggers a trap that releases darts and nearly kills them. They barely manage to avoid it and then try turning them counterclockwise, which finally opens access to a hidden tunnel. According to the journal, one must remain above in heaven while the other goes below into hell, so Nate and Chloe enter the tunnel with one cross while Sully stays behind with the other. To help Sully track their movement, Nate places a tracker on his phone, not realizing that Joe is secretly following Sully as well. Nate and Chloe follow the tunnel, which eventually leads them into a nightclub where Joe's men are also present. Pretending to be a dancing couple, they move across the room and reach the bar, where Nate attempts to start a fire using Sam's lighter. It fails again, so Chloe lights it for him, giving them the distraction they need to examine the puzzle carved behind the bar. Even so, Joe's men catch up to them, leading Nate into a fight while Chloe finds another keyhole and unlocks it with the cross. A new hidden passage opens, allowing them to escape just before it closes again, trapping Joe's men behind. Following this path leads them to a secret door beneath a fountain, and when they use the key, the room begins to flood. Sully needs to place the cross into a keyhole above ground to save them, but it's protected by thick glass. As he tries to break it, Joe appears to take the cross, and they begin to fight. At first, Joe seems to have the advantage, but Sully quickly turns things around and slams her into the glass, finally shattering it. He then places the cross into the keyhole and opens the door, allowing the others to escape, but only Nate comes out at first. Realizing Chloe is still underwater and unconscious, Nate dives back in to rescue her, and once they're both safe, Chloe is surprised that he chose to help her instead of betraying her. The door leads them into a Roman antechamber, where Nate struggles at first, but eventually manages to light a torch using Sam's lighter. This chamber is also underground, and Sully is able to see them through a drainage grate on the street above. He spots a symbol carved into a rock showing that both keys are needed together to open the next door, so he tosses his cross through the grate to them. Nate combines the crosses and opens another hidden door, leading them into a Roman storehouse. Inside are 4 massive urns, and for a moment they think they've found the treasure, only to realize the urns are filled with salt. As they examine them, the urns suddenly break, revealing a map hidden within the salt. Nate notices a route that leads from Spain to the East Indies, but before he can explain what it might mean, Chloe pulls out a gun and demands he hand over the map. Nate tries to reason with her, but Chloe tells him he doesn't know the full truth about what happened to Sam before knocking him out and escaping with the map. Shortly after, Sully wakes Nate up, and Nate demands answers. Sully admits that Sam didn't just disappear, he's gone for good. They had reached the captain's tomb together and found the journal, but on their way out, Jo and her men attacked them and Sam was shot. Nate realizes Sully escaped and left Sam behind, and that the real reason he approached Nate was because Sam might have shared the missing clues needed to find the gold. Angry, Nate calls Sully greedy and selfish, ends their partnership, and walks away. Later on, Sully tracks Nate down and tries to convince him to come back. Nate agrees, but only because he's been looking at Sam's postcards and has decided he wants to finish what his brother started. Meanwhile, Jo reports back to Santiago about everything that happened, only to find out that Chloe has been working for him as well. Since Chloe has proven to be more effective, Santiago decides she will lead the operation from now on, which clearly frustrates Jo. Santiago and his crew prepare everything at his private airport, including his prized red car, which Nate and Sully use to their advantage by sneaking into its trunk. After studying the map and choosing their route, Santiago gives a speech about how his family was betrayed and how he plans to restore their honor, but Jo suddenly cuts him off by killing him. Chloe panics and tries to escape, so while Jo and her men chase after her, Nate and Sully use the opportunity to move around unnoticed and retrieve the map. Their plan is to also grab some parachutes and jump out of the plane. But when they reach the cargo hold, Nate confronts Jo and asks if she was the one who killed Sam. Sully jumps out with a parachute while Nate ends up fighting off the men as the cargo gets pushed out of the plane, bringing the story back to the opening scene. Jo's men track down Chloe and engage her in a shootout, making it hard for her to escape with a parachute. Instead, she gets into the car and drives it straight out of the plane, so when Nate manages to climb back inside, Chloe is the one who knocks him out again. But she also saves him by grabbing his hand and guiding him onto one of the falling cargo crates, landing on top of it and deploying its parachute, allowing them to safely land in the ocean. They drift at sea for some time until the waves eventually carry them to the Philippines, where they check into a hotel using Sully's credit card. Chloe prints out a map with the same dimensions as the original, and with the help of Sam's postcards, Nate realizes the map alone doesn't reveal the exact location of the treasure. Sully was right. Sam had tried to leave Nate one final clue, so Nate and Chloe spend the night trying to decode his messages. After a while, Chloe gets tired and goes to sleep, but Nate keeps going, and it ends up paying off because he remembers one of Sam's oldest tricks. Since the lighter still doesn't work, Nate uses a candle to reveal a hidden message on one of the postcards, telling him to use the crosses as a compass. Nate follows the clue and finally figures out the treasure's location, writing down the coordinates before going to sleep. The next morning, Jo and her men arrive nearby, while Chloe wakes up first and finds the paper with the coordinates. She takes the note and leaves Nate behind, but when Nate wakes up alone, he isn't worried because he had already anticipated her betrayal and intentionally left the wrong coordinates. Nate takes a motorboat to the real location, unaware that Jo spots him from a distance while searching in the wrong area. Inside a cave, Nate swims through an underwater tunnel and emerges into another hidden chamber where both of Magellan's ships have been secretly preserved all these years. As Nate discovers the gold inside, Sully arrives as well, having tracked him through the device on his phone. He tells Nate that Sam would be proud of him, but before they can talk further, Jo and her men arrive, forcing them to hide inside a secret compartment. Using 2 helicopters, Jo's crew lifts the entire ships out through an opening above the cave, so Nate and Sully come out of hiding and grab as much gold as they can, along with a dagger and a sword to defend themselves. They climb up and fight off the crew, throwing every enemy off the ship. Sully then climbs the chains holding the ship, reaches the helicopter, and takes control after knocking out the men inside, flying away from Joe, who is on the second ship. Joe orders her pilot to chase Sully, causing their ships to collide. Her men board Nate's ship, leading to another fight, but Nate manages to defeat them, grab their guns, and even find some gunpowder. Sully flies the helicopter through a narrow path between cliffs to try and lose them, but Joe is waiting at the other end, forcing him to perform a dangerous maneuver to avoid crashing. Even then, Joe continues the chase, pushing Nate to take a risky move. Using the gunpowder, Nate loads a cannonball into the ship's cannon and, after a few failed attempts, finally gets Sam's lighter to work and fires at the helicopter. Joe jumps off just before the ship crashes into a cliff with the helicopter in flames. Nate and Sully think it's over, but Joe has actually landed on their ship and begins lowering the anchor to stop them from escaping. The ship starts to give way, and after exchanging blows with Nate, he climbs the chains to reach the helicopter. Seeing Joe chasing him, Sully finally changes and sacrifices his bag of gold by throwing it at her, knocking her into the ocean. He then helps Nate into the helicopter just before the chains snap and the ship crashes down onto Joe, killing her. The ship floats briefly before sinking, and while Nate suggests they could come back to recover the treasure, it becomes impossible as Philippine naval forces approach, meaning the gold will end up in government hands. As they fly away, Sully laughs at Chloe trying to chase them in a motorboat, though he still regrets losing the treasure. Nate surprises him by revealing that he managed to hide some gold in his pants. Meanwhile, in a remote prison, Sam writes Nate another postcard, warning him to stay alert. Months later, Nate meets with an agent working for a man named Roman who wants to trade a Nazi map for Nate's ring. The agent attempts to betray him by taking both the ring and the map, but Sully appears and creates a distraction, allowing Nate to recover both. As the two walk away together, they're suddenly stopped by a man standing right in front of them, whose identity is not revealed to the audience. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more movies coming your way.